moment to it. So, any apologies? Okay, somebody like to move apologies, please?
You don't need to.
Don't need to. Okay. Confirmation of the agenda. Confirm the agenda without additional or alterations. Okay. Declarations of interest. Oh, somebody move that, please. Move it, second.
Everybody move.
Second.
Yeah, I'll second that.
Thank you. All in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Declaration of interest. Is there anything that's going to be discussed that people will declare their interest in? If not, would somebody move that it remain the same?
Happy to move it.
Thank you, Mike. Seconder.
I'll second.
Thanks, Robert. All in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Next. Carried. Confirmation of minutes. Community Board meeting 11th of November. Confirms that the minutes are true and correct record.
There was a minor correction in the attendance, so that's been Blair Dale and Mark O'Neill have been taken out of being in attendance at the last meeting.
With that alteration from the copies you got, would somebody like to move that they be a true and correct record, please?
Just before we do that, Mr. Chair, there was the question of ownership of the railway buildings that not recorded in there, that they were still yet to be followed up.
Yes, I understand that's still in the process. My understanding.
Yeah, that was my understanding from earlier, but there's kind of no record to indicate that. That's all.
Okay, I can add that to the minutes. That brief discussion, I can put that in the minutes.
Thank you.
With that alteration or addition, would somebody like to move true and correct record?
Yeah, I'll
please?
move that way.
Thank you, Robin. Second.
I'll second.
Thanks, Leanne. All in favour, please say aye.
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 Raise their hands because it should be muted.
Carried. Right, earthquake-prone buildings. Paul and Peter. How long do you want to add a bit, or?
I can give, thanks, Mr. Chair. Yeah, happy to provide a little bit of brief context if you wish.
Yes.
So I guess coming to the board, there is a consultation that primarily affects the Strath Taieri area. The background to the work is that the Building Act was changed back in 2016, which required the identification of earthquake-prone buildings. When the original geographical mapping took place for MB, all of the Dunedin boundary was deemed a low-risk area because there was low, medium and high risks. When the amended geographical mapping came out from MB a couple of years later, there was a small sliver of land on a big map that was identified as medium risk, which is obviously in that Strath Taieri area. And because there is a...
Are you still there, John? I've lost Jock and Mark. We've lost Jock and Mark. I will try and get hold of them while Paul is doing this. Excuse me.
Do you want to continue?
Yes.
Yep. Yeah, so it basically identified a medium area. Because of that, we are then required to identify what we call priority buildings. The legislation allows for certain, which are cast in stone, so schools, hospitals, for example, would be deemed priority buildings, but it then also talks about identifying strategic transport routes or pedestrian routes that have high pedestrians and or potential to block emergency vehicle accesses and things like that. So it's a legislative consultation. Peter's done some work on identifying a couple of routes. a couple of roads, which is in the consultation. And I guess today is just about whether or not the board wants any further information from either myself or Peter regarding this consultation process so that you're aware of it. To be fair, we're not anticipating any feedback from the public around it, but I guess there is a legislative process to go through. So that's where we're at, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Is there any questions? I've got these flyers that'll be dropped off, go out, put in the township post agency to go in the boxes, because I did inform Anne that there's not many people got mailboxes in the township, so it's pretty hard to drop them off. So we're going to do it that way. You're happy with that, aren't you?
Absolutely.
Has anyone any questions? Robin?
Yeah, just kind of an observation, really. Just looking at the width of that road and the height of the buildings adjacent to it, I would have thought the only potential building that could impact on the road would be the hall.
Talks about footpaths as well as the road. So there's some of the areas we have to consider as well, not just road. And you're right, the road has got a significant width. There's some prescribed areas in the legislation.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I think if there's an earthquake and knock some of the ones up there, God help anywhere else.
Especially if it was to spread it across the road and restrict the road, I think we'd be all in deep stook.
One way of getting gravel on the road. That's good. Any further questions? So I'll get these to the postal in the early next week anyway.
If anybody does have any questions from the board, just fire them through to me, and we'll happily try and answer any questions offline if anybody thinks of anything later.
So you've identified 3 or 4 buildings, haven't you?
No, we're identifying routes based on some criteria for high vehicles in rural areas and high pedestrian in rural areas. And that's where we've come up with them. And then following on from that, they have to have potentially earthquake-prone buildings. So, for example, I believe the Strath Taieri Community Building is a timber building. It wouldn't be unreinforced masonry or pre-1976, 3 stories or higher, or 12 metres or higher. So, so first of all, we've got to agree on whether routers that could have more people in it. So if there was something that fell down onto footpaths or road or impeded the roads, so that's the purpose of this consultation. I've identified using the parameters that are in the documents or in the legislation to basically suggest those portions of road, etc.
So if people disagree or want to disagree with what we put forward.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
All right.
Is that everyone else pretty happy with explanations? Probably just a lot of paper that's been printed on and then distributed other places.
Yeah. And there is actually some paper, hard copy consultation documents that'll be at the postal centre as one, but it's all online as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Peter and Paul.
Could we adjourn to see if we can get John and Mark reconnected, please, just for a couple of minutes? So it's to adjourn.
Thank you. Mike, second.
Yes, I'll second.
Thanks, Leanne. Just adjourn for a few minutes to try and get the other 2 back on the screen. Thank you. Would somebody like to move the earthquake prone building report table, please?
Yeah, I'll move
I
that way.
will.
Leanne and Robin, thank you very much. Transportation update. I've had an update in the last few days. We're away so carefully. From Janine. I'll go through and read it out. So, weed spraying and untidiness of township. Yes, agree, township isn't looking too tidy. Whitestone have sprayed once back in November and are going to spray now, spraying now. The sweeper truck and hand crew will go up there in a couple of weeks and remove debris and also large areas of dead weeds. The Puna Road culverts and soft spots either side of 6 Mile Creek, they've got the 4 mile, but 6 mile. Couple of soft spots on the road. I've passed this on to South Roads and to attend to, and they are grading there now. The grade is up in the area now, so there's also an old helicore culvert which needs replaced, obviously. South Roads also check other culverts while there, which is common sense. Kid Road pothole with the bridge approaches. South Roads have been told about this, and the grader will repair while there. I'm still pretty disappointed that we have to report it when the roads have been graded. But I've requested that we get in front of the EV charger and along in front of the public toilets, get that sealed from the gate of the AMP showground back there, keep that tidier. So I'll just read this out. Network teams are chasing up ChargeNet, read the ceiling in front of the charger. We'll be looking at it, tying our area in with that as well. The parking signs are in and road markings to come, obviously when the area is sealed. That's just a bit of an update. We got back a few days ago.
Janine's in there if you want. She was going to speak.
Janine, would you like to add to any to that, please?
Yeah, I would just like to reiterate something that I said at council a couple of days ago, Barry, that we are looking at the phasing of the spraying for vegetation management. Areas like Moskill and Middlemarch need to be phased differently than Dunedin. So we're working through that with Whitestone right now.
Thank you, Janine. Yeah, this disappoints me. Years ago, they scheduled 4 sprayings a year, which was ridiculous. In a dry year, we get a wet year and we get one in November instead of the first one should be back September. When the farmers do all those things, I mean, surely our council should follow a bit of suit and they'll get away with another spraying probably Christmas time. Quite disappointing. And I mean, to be fair, you noticed it and you got some action for the grass barn. So thank you for that. Anyone else got comments? Robin?
The two things, Barry. One, I've had a number of comments about the quality of the new footpaths, and I believe you have as well. I don't know whether that's been followed up on. The second one, and that's, I guess, a note of appreciation for the team that did the roading work on 87 around the livestream area. I think we were told it was going to be about 10 days and expect delays of 40 minutes. It was done in just 2 or 3 days. Appears to be in a good job. And I'm not aware of anyone getting caught up for 40 minutes. So, myself, I think I had about a 30-second delay one day and that was it. So, it'd be really nice to put a note of appreciation out for that work and the speed and efficiency at which they undertook it.
Yeah, I agree. There are a few blemishes from Nichols Rock to Abbotsford Station, but early days yet, but yeah, the promptness was outstanding.
Yeah. And in respect of the in respect of the footpaths, have you had comment about them as well?
I've had a few comments about some soft spots on it, and as you get up nearer the township, why wasn't it asphalted right to the curbing?
Yeah.
Which we had that problem many years ago, and I thought that it would have been okay, but it is still pretty good. Just a few soft spots.
Is it going to be followed up?
I can follow that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Robin. Any other questions for Janine? Well, Janine, you're going to be staying on, aren't you, Janine? You'll be on staying hooked up, aren't you?
Yes, I am, Barry. Yep.
Thank you. Okay, would somebody like to move the transportation update, please?
Happy to do that.
Thank you, Mike. Seconder. Robin, thank you very much. All in favour, please say aye. Can't see a couple of hands. Okay. Move on to Jenny's report. Governance Officer's report, sorry.
It's just a basic report. There is nothing extra in it. There's the project fund update and what's currently being consulted on. So it has been added now with, oh no, that's there. So yeah, there's nothing to add. Covered in other parts of the agenda.
Yep. So we've got groups, causes require money. We've only got till June. Into June.
Yes, the June meeting will be your last.
Unless we get a COVID extension. So if you hear of anyone, just get them to apply through the right channels. Any other questions for Jenny?
Sorry, just one from me, Mr. Chair. Just again, Jenny, just to follow up on the ownership of the buildings and assets in the railway complex. That would be really good.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay,
somebody move that, please.
Oh, I've got a hand up, Barry. Sorry. Hey, I just had a question relating to the balance of the money that's left in that fund. Are there any projects that the board would like to undertake, or I don't think we've done much since Russell did the sign years ago at but I'm just wondering if there is any board projects, anything around the town that we'd like to look at, because I mean it's a sizable lump of money, and we could do some useful signage, or whether you could put some boards up with some signage at anywhere in the town, or was there anything you'd like to identify as projects that we could use that money for? I haven't got any particular ideas myself, but it's within the realms of what we can use that money legitimately to do things. So if there is any good projects, people on the ground up there thinking about, we could use that money. So yeah, thank you.
Thanks for that, Mike. You know, it's been just for us, it's for everyone to think about. In favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Chairperson's report. I've got a few things now. I'd be quite happy to see or get an update on the Taieri Gorge. Also on the Taieri Gorge, I would like to know what they're going to do about the weed control. It seems a wee bit neglected, certain areas, and I haven't been down the gorge, obviously. I did ask a request for a grass cutting map.
I'm sorry, it's sitting on my desk.
Oh, thank you.
Sorry, that's not you.
And the other one, probably Janine, you can help me on that. The gorse spraying is probably back to as bad as it was a few years ago. That's even over the roads towards Hyde, over the Hyde Hill. There's quite an amount of gorse and broom there. And I don't know that I was told from a reputable weed spray guys that 3 years frost flare equals failure. So just, I'd like to see some of that followed up. I've had requests from farmers and they try their best, some of them, inside the boundary, and then it's grown on the outside. So if that could be followed through. So I've got the result there, or answers back on the Napuna Road. There's another question I've got, Janine, and it's probably comes to Napuna Road and the highway at the top end. After a flood, it's quite a bit of debris and quite large rocks get deposited on the front of culverts and the bottom, both sides of bridges. I just wonder, is there anyone that does go around in the council staff checking perhaps that stuff after a flood?
We have like maintenance patrols that should be going around the network all the time.
Yeah, I thought that too. I had a report about some up Napuna Road at the top end, up near a rock and pillar. The guy was going to come back to you with some numbers, but not yet. So I just thought if it was a general check-up would be probably helpful. The other thing we've asked about for many years, and it goes way back when Peter Badika was regional council, was a consent for gravel extraction from, I'll say, rock and pillar to some different areas to be able to excavate shingle to gravel our roads in the near vicinities, which I think we're all aware that cartage is quite an expensive thing, and if it could be utilised, pretty handy. And I think, to be fair, it would help quite a few of our landowners at boundary, the river, if it was taken out of the right side of the corners. So I wonder if that can be just followed up with regional council. And also on that, there was going to be a report each meeting from regional council. There's been no more done at the March Creek that I'm aware of. There's a wee bit done a couple of months ago and tidied up, but I'm just a bit concerned, you know, if we get a session of a fraction of some of the rain that's forecast for the West Coast, we'll have some more problems. And also at the March Creek at the rail bridge, I know COVID hasn't helped any of it, but there was to be some reports for that.
I think that's an action for me, Jenny, for me to sit with ORC and to kind of get a position on that bridge and then come and talk to the board about it.
Yeah, well, Michelle Whiffen did say she'd be there each meeting or have a report, but it just seems to have faded away. And to be fair, we can all get efficient when there's a flood, but let's try and have some prevention. So yeah, that's one. I've got written down there the footpath quality, so I wonder if that can be checked up on that. The re-asphalting of the footpaths, Janine. There's some, well, actually all on State Highway 87, on either side. Just a little thing that's happening, the submarine has finally almost got a shed. So they've been working tirelessly on that, and thank you to the council for some funding through some heritage department they received. And another one I've got is Prendergast Road at Hyde is outside 3 houses, number 7, number 60 and number 90 for dust suppression. The houses are, 2 of them in particular very close to the road, and elderly residents. One has got quite a bit of emphysema, and previously it was done by Cook's Transport and earlier in that Colin Todd that had a quarry up there, but now that you're not really allowed to use oil, we'd like them on the oil list, along with Cameron McCauley's just building a new house on Gladbrook Road by the Creek Bridge. So it often happens that they're up and done dust suppression, and they're away again before we know it. So just like
So,
to get that.
Jenny, can you send me through the numbers? I know Prendergast Road, send me through the numbers and I'll get Bruce to look at whether we can put them on the list.
Yes, we know it's too late for this year, Janine, but if we can perhaps, as I say, we don't know sometimes till they're there. So if we can get it on for next year, those ones would be great. That's if the residents are still above ground. So yeah, probably it sounds like it was Brisbane, but if the grass and the weed spraying had been better, it would be better. And I thank you, Janine, when you come back at Christmas, you got some action pretty quick. When it's a dry year, the contractors probably cream it. When it's a wet year, they do get pinged. So, anyone else got comments on any of those or any other? Mike?
You're muted, Mike.
Sorry, yeah, I wasn't pushing the right button hard enough. The old space bar mistook it for the thing. Never mind. No, look, I was just going to say, in regards to that global consent, I was with you at the meeting that we had years ago. I came up as a council appointee to the board 7 years ago. We met with the chair of the ORC and the chief executive, and at that time we were promised that they would arrange a global consent at their cost, actually is what they told us, at their cost, so that the multiple farmers up and down, or I guess it was those, just I don't know the exact places, but I knew I was there we went to the places, and I think it was it Paddy Tisdall's place at one end and someone else further down, and the idea was that they were going to arrange a consent so that farmers could regularly take gravel out of the river and wouldn't have to apply for individual consents. And they saw that at that time as being of value to the community because it would clear the bed of the river. So I know we've got a new chairman of the board and we've got a new chief executive. So whether that will hold any value, whether people will remember that or agree to it, but it was something that was promised by the regional council back in probably 2015, 2016, I think. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, it was going to be quite a bit of would have been river management, which would have been beneficial to them, the landowners, everyone concerned.
Yep, that's true.
So yeah, I just wonder if we can follow that up. Just the other question I've had thrown around at me a few times is about the COVID, the local hall, Strath Taieri Community Centre, about regarding COVID, vaccinated or unvaccinated people, and fair to Leanne, she sent a letter to Marie Sleeman, I think it was, and really got a wish-washy answer. But Leanne, would you like to comment on that, please?
So there had just been some concern from community members that given all the DCC premises were vaccine pass, that the DCC managed halls are vaccine pass only, but the community managed halls they can choose. And I'm on the committee up here, but there was an executive decision with not a lot of input from anybody that it was going to alternate between non-vaccine pass and vaccine pass. So there's just been a little bit of concern in the community, you know, with how this kind of rolls and affects everybody. And I'm just unsure if, you know, the welfare of the community is at the forefront of that decision. And the reply was that it was from their guidelines, were following DCC guidelines. Yeah, so we didn't really get anywhere with that, but we have a whole committee meeting on Tuesday, so it will be raised there as well.
Thank you, Leanne. Thank you very much for that. That's really all I've got on my report. So, Robin?
Yeah, Barry, just picking up on your comments about the reports from ORC. It's been over 13 months now since that flooding, and we still haven't seen a comprehensive overview response from DCC and the ORC as to exactly what they're going to do. And there was a lot of discussion that they were going to bring, that they were going to talk to a lot of to the community, and then they were going to come back with some proposals. And I'm not sure that they've talked to the community other than briefly after one of our board meetings, which must have been September-ish last year. So we're still waiting to actually hear exactly what the proposal is, because I know work's been done in part by both DCC and ORC and landowners, but I don't see how that kind of all knits together. And you did make the observation also about the railway culvert. So we're still waiting on I think a response that we can give the community and say this is the comprehensive overview, and these are the actions that are going to happen, and this is who's going to do it. And I think we owe that to the community. And certainly I'd be pushing quite strongly to encourage ORC and DCC to bring a comprehensive report back, which is what they promised they'd do too.
Yeah, that's why I brought it up before, Robin, because it's just, she hasn't kept her word.
Yes.
I know some of the farmers below have spent considerable amount of money of their own and opened the creeks out. But then the first flush of water, that was another reason I asked about, somebody checking bridges. It deposits a heap again. So, I'm far from satisfied. And I mean, I didn't have much faith in her comments, to be fair, after all the years we've tried for that general consent for gravel extraction. So, I'm very, very disappointed for the community, to be fair. And there'll be another flood, and that will be basically accused of doing nothing.
Well, we've had a business closed down as a direct result of that. We've had a number of residences flooded, a number of other buildings flooded, a whole lot of inconvenience to a whole lot of people, plus an awful lot of cost. And a lot of promises to come back on specific bits and pieces, but they also promised that overview. And I think that's the key one, is where does everything fit together? It's okay to hear of bits and pieces here and there being done. I think that's great, but I really feel uncomfortable if and I've been asked by a couple of members of the community, well, what the hell is actually happening, And to be honest, I can't give them a straight answer, and I'm not sure anyone can. And until we get that overview report that puts everything in the context of who's doing what, when, and how. And I'd really strongly urge that we push very hard for that report as quickly as possible. As I said, it's 13 months since that flood. Crikey, it doesn't take that long to do that report.
No, that's why I'm quite disappointed. That's why it shouldn't have to be coming up in every agenda or in a report, but it's got to till we get something.
So how do we actually take it to the CEO of Regional Council and DCC and say, look, this should have a priority, because somewhere along the line, someone's got to make a decision. It's a priority job to be done. And if it's obviously keeps getting pushed back down the priorities by someone, let's ratchet it up to those that are making the key decisions, because someone's going to, have to stand to account at some stage when we get another flood if we haven't got that work done.
Thank you, Robin. Mike.
Yeah, look, I think this is actually pretty simple. There's no point us sitting on this meeting and bashing Michelle or bashing anyone at the Regional Council. It's probably just gone right off her radar and she's not even thinking about it. Now, all we need to do is write her a letter and remind her of the commitments that she made at the meeting and the subsequent meeting that she made at the public meeting and the community board meeting, and just ask her to give us an update, because I really don't think it's a big issue. The problem is we sit here and talk about it meeting after meeting, but no one's talking to her. So Barry, if you want to draft up a letter, or you want me to draft up a letter or something, and we send it on behalf of the board and say what we're wanting, or on behalf of the board and the Middlemarch community, she'll respond to that, I'm sure. I mean, she's not a she's a busy person is what she is. It's not that she's a difficult person. And I think it'll be quite a simple thing to get a response by just asking for one.
Thank you, Mike.
Through the chair, I have to say we have asked that before, Mike, and you know, we still.
Has the letter got through and been acknowledged? Has she seen it?
I have no idea. I didn't send the letter, but we have asked as a board for that previously. So we have asked, and we're still getting no response. So I'm just asking if we and saying, you know, 13 months since the flooding. Not only are we looking for the regular updates, which we've been promised, and I understand that might not be on her radar because of other work, but more importantly, I think, is the overview of what is proposed by council and what has been done by council in the overview of mitigation. And that's just not Michelle, that's a much wider group than that. So that's I think that's the nub of it. It's not one individual. I think it's 2 or 3 or 4 individuals need to come together and actually be able to present back to the community. This is what we're going to do. This is what's been done, and here's the overview, and here goes what still is to be done, and here's the time frame to it. Quite as you say, it's quite simple, but we need to ask the question, and we need to get the answers. We can't just keep asking.
We'll get a letter sent
Thank you.
very shortly, and then we'll wait for reply, and the reply we'll get emailed out to all the members. So that's about all we can do. Okay. Well, that's probably covers most of our report. Somebody like to move the chairperson's report? Huh?
I'll move it.
Thank you, Robin. Seconder?
Yeah.
Mark, thank you. All in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Karen, I can't see Mark's hand. Mike, you'd like to give us a report, please?
Yeah, thanks, Barry. Yeah, I guess the other thing, just before we go on to that, just remind you that probably Middlemarch is probably the group of people, the Strath Taieri, that have got the greatest representation on council, when you've got 2 of the Molyneux councillors are both within a stone's throw of your town. So you've got Carmen and Kate, and both of those people, I mean, there's no problem for any of you members to pick up the phone and talk to either of those 2 councillors. So I don't think this should be a big deal. I really do think you should get onto it. But yeah, look, as far as the council stuff goes, we had earlier this week, we had our council meetings where the council departments submitted their budgets to go through for this year 2 of the 10-year plan. There was no major changes from the original. There was a number of reports that came to council that had been asked for last year. There was no major changes from what the budget was, which was stated in the 10-year plan. So it's what we'd call a non-exceptions budget. But we did, you will have seen the paper earlier this week. There's been discussions about the sports hub at Logan Park, a destination playground. There's a few things that we've asked about: curbside recycling, the transport budget, all the different budgets from all the different departments, so roading, infrastructure, 3 waters, the library, the arts, all those areas. There was also a cycleways discussion. And yeah, so really pretty much that was all ticked off pretty much, so that what we saw has gone out, which will now get put into a consultation document, and will go out, be consulted on, and will all be after some discussions, we'll be approving or unapproving things at the end of May or in May. So if you're concerned about things in your district, now is the time to start actively looking. When the consultation document comes out, it's time to make submissions on behalf of the board and wire up the community if you've got particular issues you want. And just thinking about what we've also said, remember that the annual plan of the ORC will be done in a similar time frame, and that will be the time to lobby them for any action or inaction that you feel you need to sort out from the board and from the community as well. So I mean, if you can empower the town to start sending some submissions in and give them some good ideas about what they may or may not do, I think you've got more power than you realise if you get everyone empowered and get some submissions in. So yeah, but other than that, yeah, obviously we've been fairly quiet over the holidays, the break, the Christmas, New Year period, and I think behind the scenes there's probably quite a lot of COVID planning going on. People, we know that in the next few weeks there could be a bit of a burst of this Omicron, and so there'll be more people working from home. There'll be more meetings like this on Zoom, and things will be changed around a bit. So yeah, it might not be life, or might not be quite what we know it in the next few months. But other than that, yeah, not much else to report. Happy to take any questions, and I'm happy to move my report.
Mike was just previously, and I think it's common, there's no seal extensions. Is that right?
There's nothing planned in this year's budget, that's for certain, but that may be something that people bring up and submit for, and it's certainly something that this board should submit for if they think it's important. Yeah, I mean, the problem is it's probably hard in the Strath Taieri to compete with some of the other roads. If we do put a ceiling budget, you know, any roads that go in will have to be high priority and will have to be the most important. And whether or not that would include any in the Strath, I'd be surprised a bit. But yeah, just something to lobby for if you want to lobby for it. Just
the concern I've got, and I feel sorry for the council, is that Transit or New Zealand NZTA have increased truck unit loads from 40 tonne to 44 tonne, now 50 tonne, and our poor old roads just can't hack it, and it falls back on poor old council. And you know, that must cause the maintenance costs to go way up.
Well, look, I think there's clear evidence that 50 tonnes doing some damage to some of our roads, but I guess by the same token, we do have the FAR rate, which is the assistance rate, comes from Wakakatahi or Transit, and so that money is there, and until they increase their budgets, we can't increase our budgets, and it's probably, I mean, I do notice some of the roads that we've sealed the last couple of years. I mean, places like Kaikoura Valley Road we've milled out, and I sometimes think, oh, if instead of milling out 40 or 50 mils, we went down 65, 70, you might get a better road that would last and hold up better, but boy, it would cost a lot more too, and that'll push your rates through the roof too. So it's not an easy decision to make, and yeah, I don't know what the answer is. Maybe concrete roads, but who knows?
I've asked a couple of questions for the last few years, and starting the Dunstan Trail with the rocks. Why can't they get a rock grinder and grind some of the rocks down, which would get rid of, and same out Moonlight Road, because the rocks are there and there's no way they shift with wheels. It's just either side of them that corrugates out so bad. And I do see that Kelso Contracting, I think it is, rock stump grinder or whatever they want to call it, doing a few roads, and sometimes they do that when they're repairing the seal, and I just wonder why it hasn't been tried on some of those schist rock roads. The first hill going out of up Dunstan Trail is real good for 2 days after they grade it, but then it just packs up again.
Is that the one just over the bridge when you leave Rocklands?
Yeah, where the gate are, where they shut the gate for winter. Yeah. Stop playing with buttons.
Yeah, sorry, I just hold it down when I want to talk. I guess there's a couple of things in that. Look, that Kelso contracting machine would absolutely eat that stuff. The problem it'd do there, Barry, is it'll turn it to talcum powder, and you'd have to put rock on top of it to hold it in place, because they just eat that sort of stuff up. I mean, that'll eat up chunks of blue rock. You know, it's a pretty powerful machine, but there again, it comes at a cost, and how many people use the road, and you've got to value that against every other road in the city. So, I mean, I went over the Dunstan a few weeks ago, and I just thought the road was just what you'd expect for a rural road. that's a bit different, you know what I mean? I wouldn't necessarily think that every road around Middlemarch should look like that, but for the Dunstan, I would have been disappointed if it was any better, you know? It's just me.
It's, to be fair, the council, the Dunedin City Council side was far better than the other side. Would that be a fair comment?
Oh yeah, you go the bit between Galloway and the other side of the sticks. It's
Yeah, the sticks. Yeah.
pretty ugly bit of road there. But then I would have, like I say, I wouldn't want Central to spend any money on that either. I just enjoy it the way it is. That's the purpose of going, isn't it?
Thank you, Mike. Any other questions? Well, everyone's hooked in, or if not, can somebody move Mike's report? Can I second his report? I'll second Mike's report. All in favour, please say aye. Thanks, carried. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for your attendance and one way or other. Yep. Oh, sorry, I did get this one. Notification of items for consideration by the chairperson. Else, any? If not, thank you everyone for their attendance. I declare the meeting closed. Thank you, Paul.